Welcome back, everybody, to another edition of the Crute Cast. I'm Jason Suchomel, joined as always by Cole Patterson. Cole, we're going to do a little kind of just big picture landscaping conversation today, so it should be interesting. Things have changed, hits and misses and ebbs and flows and roller coaster rides of recruiting momentum. So we'll get into that here in a minute. But before we do that, I'd like to encourage everybody, as always, please like these videos, subscribe to our channel. We're trying to get the subscription numbers built up. We're doing a great job, but if you haven't subscribed yet, go ahead and do it, man. Get the notification when we do a Crute Cast or Modcast or Anwar's Drunk Uncle live video, or he and Ketch have an Overreaction Monday video where they kind of talk about Steve Sarkisian's Monday press conference. So subscribe to the channel, like the video, please. And obviously, as always, support our sponsor, Prime Shrimp. They're at primeshrimp.com, $20 off your first order with that promo code Orange Bloods. One of our, I love all of our sponsors, honestly, man, but Prime Shrimp is legit, people. Give primeshrimp.com a try. I promise you'll love it. So, Cole, we're not going to get into specific recruits. A little bit we are, I guess. Let me clarify. But we're not going to talk about guys that you went and watched or guys that I talked to this week. And we've talked to some pretty good players, but we're going to save that, maybe come back later in the week and talk to some of those guys. I want to talk about and kind of pick your brain and just kind of spitball here. Something I wrote about in my column on Orange Bloods, my 321 column. I just posted it Tuesday morning, just talking about how quickly recruiting momentum has changed, can change, and has changed. Let me just set the table. 2 weeks ago, Texas is coming off of a tough 1-point loss to Alabama, and everybody is riding high in Austin, and everybody's like, oh man, Texas is, even with that loss, Texas has huge recruiting momentum. A&M is that same day loses to Appalachian State. Everybody's like, oh, A&M's about to crumble. They've got a tough schedule coming up. We fast forward a couple weeks. A&M's won a couple big games. Texas stumbles on the road at Texas Tech. It feels like a missed opportunity for Texas. I mean, Texas shot themselves in the foot a little bit. Credit to A&M. They did what they needed to do to bounce back. So, things now look a lot different than they did just 2 weeks ago, right? I mean, it's pretty amazing how quickly this thing can change. Cole, your thoughts on this roller coaster ride of the first month of the season that we're in?
Yeah, not even just recruiting, just, kind of the whole program. There's a lot of excitement coming out of the Alabama game. You felt like if Quinn didn't get hurt, you probably come out with a win there. And you're all, encouraged from that performance, especially defensively and everything like that, taking Alabama down to the wire. We talked to a lot of recruits that day. Everybody said it was the best game they've ever been to, or best atmosphere. Was insane.
Like 30 of them. It was like best game, best thing ever, man.
Yeah. Even kind of with some players, some recruits who didn't even go to the game, kind of watching on TV or whatever, and they were impressed as well. So there's a lot of momentum coming out of that game. Like I said, A&M struggled and lost to Appalachian State at home. There was a quarterback change there, so you didn't know what they were going to look like offensively. Texas had the momentum. And then, like I said, everything's kind of, I want to say fall back to earth, but, kind of almost like a 180. You lose to Texas Tech. It's kind of a similar theme as of last year. You're up 14 points. You seem to have control of the game and couldn't really put them away. And you forced overtime, maybe steal a win on the road after playing bad in the second half. That didn't end up happening. Obviously, recruits don't just look at one game. Oklahoma also lost, and teams lose. But like you said, there's definitely a missed opportunity. There's a chance to kind of show recruits, show the fan base, show really everybody that things are turning around. Things are different than last year. And obviously, there's still a lot of games left to be played, but Texas Tech was a missed opportunity for sure.
Yeah, it seems like Texas a few times has been so close. I keep saying, like, this Texas recruiting. And listen, I mean, they had top 5 class and they were top 5 last year. So it's not like they're recruiting poorly, right? Yeah. But far from it. But Texas recruiting, as much as any program in the country, I say maybe like USC, I mean, Alabama and Ohio State, Georgia, they already recruit well. Schools like Texas and USC, though, if they can turn in this one dominant season, I always say they can be a recruiting juggernaut almost overnight. They can take off like a rocket ship. And Texas has been so close to having that. Going into last season, I thought Texas had a chance. Hey, man, they're recruiting well. It can really be supercharged if they have a good season. They go 5-7, right? Well, they end up recruiting well anyways. They're recruiting well this year going into the season. You're like, okay, this thing can really take off with a good season. They win their first one. They lose to Alabama by 1 on the last second play. A&M loses to Appalachian State. You're looking forward. A&M's got what people think are a couple of very losable games to Miami and Arkansas. Texas has winnable games against UTSA and Texas Tech. You're like, okay, this balance of recruiting power is close to shifting to Texas in a big way.
Yeah.
And it's another missed opportunity. And now Texas can get it back. I mean, A&M's got a tough game against Mississippi State this week. That's in Mississippi, right, Cole?
Yeah, it's in Starkville.
Yeah. And then they've got Alabama.
Yeah.
Texas has a chance. They've got West Virginia at home, and then they got Oklahoma. So same week Texas A&M plays Alabama, Texas plays Oklahoma. If Alabama goes out and thumps A&M, Texas thumps Oklahoma by chance. I don't know that that'll happen, but if it does, then the script changes again. Okay, but this thing just continues to change rapidly and quickly, and it just seems like it just keeps slipping through the fingers of the Texas program week by week.
Well, I think go ahead. I didn't mean to cut you off. I was going to say a big example, I guess you could say, was last year Texas was dominating Oklahoma 20-7. You had all the recruits kind of watching that game, paying close attention, and then I don't need to bring up what happened in the second half or anything. And then later that night, A&M beat Alabama with Zach Calzada, and kind of even just covering recruiting, it kind of like a punch to the gut kind of thing. Air was taken out of you as far as the recruiting goes. Like I said, they did finish a top 5 class, but Evan Stewart was one of those guys that ended up going to A&M. I'm not sure one game would make that big of a difference, but still, recruits look at more than one game. But like you said, Texas hasn't been able to grab the momentum by the horns and kind of ride it. A long season ago, like you said, A&M has some tough SEC games coming up, but it's hard to overlook that loss to Texas Tech. We'll see what they can do and how to recover when Quinn comes back, see what kind of momentum gets started again. But it's hard to disagree with what your point is as far as missed opportunities on the recruiting trail.
Yeah, I'm not comparing last weekend with A&M beating Arkansas and Texas losing to Texas Tech. You're right. You kind of refreshed my memory that weekend of the Oklahoma game last year, and Texas is up big and they end up blowing the lead, right? About halftime, so about 12:30 in the afternoon of that Saturday, I think I was writing down some notes for my column for that week. I'm anticipating A&M getting beat by Alabama that night. I'm like, oh man, this recruiting landscape is flipped on its head. And Texas loses, A&M beats Alabama. You're like, whoa, what a monumental shift in a matter of whatever it was, 6-7 hours. And listen, A&M rode that and another whatever recruiting success and measures and tactics and whatever to arguably some people would say the best recruiting class in the history of Rivals.com's existence. So, yes, Texas recruited well, but A&M's recruited at a whole other level. So Texas is trying to kind of even that out a little bit. And Cole, I want to, we're focused on A&M, but I also want to look at Oklahoma and LSU, a couple other regional rivals. Okay, Oklahoma was off to an impressive 3-0 start. New head coach, of course, Brett Venables, and then they stubbed their toe in a bad way last week against Kansas State. Oklahoma's got a chance. They got a game at TCU this weekend. That's no gimme. TCU's playing good football. And then obviously the Texas OU game. So Oklahoma's kind of on a teetering point there too. I mean, we'll see what happens with them moving forward. LSU on the flip side, bad opening loss to Florida State, and they lost that one in heartbreaking fashion, 24-23. They've bounced back since then and played really good football. Beat Southern, you'd expect. Beat a good Mississippi State team, 31-16. Handled them pretty easily. Beat New Mexico last week, 38-0. They've got Auburn coming up this weekend. Should be a winnable game. And they host Tennessee, Tennessee's playing good football. But LSU, it's just funny. I mean, early in the season, even before the season started, everybody was ready to throw dirt on Brian Kelly. Like, he's not going to make it, right?
Yeah.
They lose to Florida State. Oh, they're dead. He's not going to make it. And now they've bounced back, and suddenly they're playing good football. And LSU could be a thorn in Texas' side with a guy like Javian Toviano. I mean, there's a lot of recruiting crossover. I would almost argue that there's as much recruiting crossover with LSU sometimes as there is with Texas and Oklahoma.
Yeah, especially in the 2024 class. They had Colin Simmons and Davian Dotson on campus the same week Texas hosted Alabama. So trying to
They
read
went
the tea
to the
there.
Southern game in Baton Rouge. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, I mean, I think the overall point is that recruiting can change so fast. I think fans are more emotional than recruits, and
Yeah.
so obviously you want to see the team you're committed to, a team you're interested in win. I mean, there's obviously something there to it, but I think there's so much change, so much that can change week to week, game to game. What game, it seems like Oklahoma always struggles with Kansas State. It seems to be a bad matchup, regardless who the coach is at this point. Um, Oklahoma.
Cough, cough, Texas and Kansas. Cough, cough. Yeah.
Yeah, not to be the bearer of bad news, but Kansas looks actually really good right now with
They
Jalen.
really
Yeah. But yeah, I think recruits looking the bigger picture. But I mean, just talking to recruits or just kind of seeing with the fan base and the overall feelings of the programs, it's kind of weird of how different it is right now than it was just hours after the Bama game.
Yeah. 2 weeks ago, it was a totally different feel around Texas's recruiting. And
What
then
about like if they come out and take care of business, against West Virginia, and then obviously the Red River Robbery game, everything changes. Quinn's back.
that game is in a distant memory.
Yeah, exactly. So.
And I mean, listen, there's a lot of football to be played, and who knows what this will look like. There are still some 2023s that may make their decisions this fall. Not many. Most are going to wait probably till November or December. 2024 guys really aren't going to decide this fall. So there's a lot that can happen. I mean, I don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves, but the point of this conversation is that it does feel like it's been a missed opportunity for Texas, partly because of what Texas did by messing up in Lubbock, but partly by what A&M did by winning a couple games that I think a lot of us thought they would at least lose one of them, maybe even both of them.
And I'll say the post was a little bit shorter than they probably do lose to Arkansas.
yeah, maybe. Yeah. That was a pretty wild game, even the way they scored. And that brings up my next point. A&M's offensive struggles. I mean, listen, they're winning, but man, if they don't get that offense going, and you could say the same about the Texas defense to some degree. But I mean, the A&M's offense. I mean, if you're the next Evan Stewart, I mean, are you going to go to A&M? If it's 1 year they have a bad offensive scheme or bad offensive execution or performance overall, you can say, okay, that was a 1 year thing. They don't have a quarterback, or they're learning a new system sometimes. But I mean, that offense under Jimbo has been bad, really, pretty much since he's been there. I think I don't have the stats.
Really since Jameis left him.
Well, honestly, it goes back to his Florida State days. You're right. So that could end up impacting A&M on offensive recruits, because you can spin that for a year or two, like, hey, dude, no, we're breaking in a new quarterback, or no, hey, you're the guy we need to take this up to the next level and get past these problems. But when you keep recruiting players like Evan Stewart and they're still struggling, those guys aren't getting the ball, and Damon Demas and some of these other elite skill players that A&M's recruited, and it's still not happening on the field. I mean, other receivers and skill players are going to eventually take note of that. So
they have the talent. They have the Evan Stewart. They have A-Chain. They have all these guys. Nye Smith, I know he's injured now, but previous to that, Nye Smith as well. It's not the talent. It's just, at some point, it's the scheme. I mean, A&M fans were saying if they had Haynes King healthy last year, they go 10-2 or whatever. I mean, obviously that doesn't look to be the case anymore. And Max Johnson has limited the turnovers, but they still look stagnant offensively. They had that, if KJ Jefferson is trying to jump from the 3-yard line into the end zone, and A&M probably doesn't win that game. There's a fumble that turned into a touchdown. So yeah, I mean, if you talk to Jonte Cook is one example that was always really impressed by Steve Sarkisian's scheme and the way he uses his receivers. So I think that's something that Texas can continue to sell recruits on. Hey, look what we're doing over here, especially when Quinn Ewers is back, assuming he gets to the level he was against Alabama. And that's another thing that Texas can sell on the recruiting trail and kind of get momentum back in their favor.
Yeah. It is. I think you can partly blame A&M's scheme, but at some point their quarterback play has to get better too.
Oh, yeah.
And some of that's on the coaching. I mean, Sark is always going to have good quarterback play. He can turn sometimes pretty mediocre quarterbacks into pretty good quarterbacks, or pretty good quarterbacks into great quarterbacks. In Texas's offense, even in a loss to Texas Tech, you look up, you're like, they scored 34 points.
Yeah.
Without the help of turnovers. So, it's not that. I mean, the offense, yes, it was stagnant for most of the second half. but there's still plenty of productivity there that you can sell to recruits. So, big couple of weeks coming up, man, for Texas, and we'll see what happens with A&M's schedule these next couple of weeks. Obviously, Oklahoma and Texas play in a couple of weeks. So this, like I said, the ebbs and flows of this thing, it's not flowing the way you want it if you're a Texas fan after last weekend, but they've got a chance to right the ship here and kind of get this thing back heading in the right direction and continue to build on some of that momentum. So lots to talk about, Cole. Lots of interesting dynamics from week to week. It's never a dull moment in college football and college football recruiting. We'll talk about some of the individual prospects that you've talked to and I've talked to. We each talked to some pretty highly rated guys over the last week or so since we last recorded our Crew Cast. So we'll maybe come back on Thursday. Let's kind of shoot for maybe Thursday and try to knock something out, getting more specific in the guys we've talked to. But wanted to kind of talk, just do a quick Crew Cast here on the just kind of the recruiting landscape after the last couple of weeks. So with that, Cole, we'll sign off unless you've got anything exciting you want to add, Cole. Anything going on with you?
No, not really. I got to see Arch a couple weeks ago. Was set to see Cedric Baxter this week. Mother Nature had different plans for that. But yeah, looking forward to getting out to Florida whenever that is possible, whenever the weather's behind us. But yeah, other than that, make sure you get the prime shrimp because, like Jason said, it's really good.
Yeah, man, that you not getting to go to Orlando, I feel badly for you. That was like 2 years ago when I was scheduled to go see Malik Murphy out in Las Vegas at a big 7-on-7 tournament. And that would have been I guess in January, maybe, when we had the big freeze here in Austin, like 100 years or whatever. Man, I fought like hell to get out of here. And I finally did, Cole. It was like the last minute thing. And like my flight kept getting delayed and canceled. And I had to jump through so many hoops, but I ended up getting to make it out to Vegas to see Malik Murphy and enjoy Vegas a little bit as always. So hopefully you can get down to Orlando.
A lot better than being frozen in Texas.
Yeah, I did feel bad leaving my wife and 4 kids at home. Like, sorry guys, I'm jumping a plane to go to Vegas. They made it through just fine. So, dad and husband of the year right here, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Duty calls. I've got to go pay the bills. But yeah. So, all right, Cole. Appreciate your time, bud. Appreciate everybody's time watching this Crewcast video and all these Crewcast videos. As Cole said, get you some prime shrimp. Please like the video, subscribe to the channel. That does us some favors and helps us out there. But we'll be back this week. The intent is to be back later in the week with another Crewcast video. I'm Jason Suchomel. That's Cole Patterson. Y'all have a great week, and we will talk to you soon. Take care.